So what I'll do is I'll raise this up, and they go sit back there, and they go like this, and you slightly go up, or I'm going to leave this.
Okay, and I'm going to be talking. Just going to do some quick tests. Testing. Audio testing. Hello, hello. Oh, hi. We'd like to get started. We're just past 6. Okay. Well, thank you all for coming on this beautiful evening and giving us your time to talk about the design of your new Washougal Library. I'm Laura Klinger with Hacker Architects, and I'm joined by Marissa and Amelie, also from Hacker. And we have some folks from the library, Amelia Shelley from Fort Vancouver, Judy from the Library Foundation, where's Judy? And lots of friends of library, etc., library supporters. Okay. Give it a minute. So tonight we're going to give a brief presentation, probably about 20 minutes, and then take your questions. And then we have some boards set up around the room that we want to have conversations with you, ask questions individually, and allow you to leave your comments and on things that you're seeing. It looks like there's nobody joining on Zoom, so I don't have to do the please mute all. And we are going to take questions in chat if anyone joins, but I'll get started. It's not forwarding. Technical glitch. Am I first? Oh, there we go. Okay, so the agenda for today's presentation is we're going to talk a little bit about project schedule first, give you an update, and then go back to last year in July when we had our last community meeting and just talk about some of the things that we heard then and some of the priorities that are kind of surfacing to the top for the project. And then Marissa's going to give an overview of the building program, so talk about all the different spaces that are planned for the building and give you some ideas of other spaces and other libraries and what those might look like. And then Amelie is going to talk about design inspiration, the history, culture, landscape of Washougal and how that can be woven into the design. And then talk about some site analysis that we've done on the existing site. And then finally talk about the 4 plan concepts that we have on the boards and kind of walk you through those so then you know what you're looking at when you're looking at the boards. Okay. So just a little bit on Hacker Architects. Libraries are one of our specialties of our firm. We've designed over 30 public libraries, and really they're really special to us, especially when they're in small communities from 10,000 square feet to 30,000 square feet. We love to try and get to know the communities and what's important for you and really bring that into the building design, so that the library itself is really rooted in the community that it exists. And these are just some examples of our projects from different communities, mostly along the West Coast. So this is the project timeline. We started back in the summer of last year, and we did visioning and programming. We had our first community outreach meeting, and we looked at, really dove in and analyzed the site that we have for the library. We then went on hold for a little bit for some site verification and just started back again in February in picking up the first phase of design, which is called schematic design. And we're here at our public outreach event. We expect to finish up schematic design when you'll really, at the end of this phase, you'll really see what this library is going to look like, what it's going to feel like, what are the materials, what's the form. And that will wrap up in May. Mid-May, and then we'll have that full cost analysis done and some great renderings of the project, and then we'll produce a full report, and we'll have another public outreach event in mid-May where we'll show the more detailed design, and then we'll also report out at the end of June when this phase is done. And how this work fits into the bigger picture of the project. I'm calling it phase 1. So it's program and concept schematic design. We're here. And so when we're finished this phase, the project will likely go on hold until we figure out how it will get funded. It might go out for a bond. There might be other funding strategies. And then we'll pick up, once we've figured out how it's going to get funded, we'll pick back up and we'll have about eight more months of design where we do what's called design development and construction drawings. And there'll be more opportunities for community input in that phase of design in phase 2. And then it'll probably be about a year of construction after that. So back to the flashback to last summer, where we had a community event, and that was really about getting ideas of what was going to go in this building, what were the programs that were really important, like what spaces were important to you, and what were some of the themes that were coming out of what you want for this library. So we recorded all the different comments that we received, and obviously you can't read these all, but this whole presentation will be posted on the library's website, so you can look at that in more detail. But what we did is we kind of summarize what we were hearing about the big themes and priorities that were coming to the surface, and we've divided them out in different themes. So the first is cost. So it was really important. We heard that the layout is really efficient and that there's no wasted space. The design is really cost effective and might use local materials and trades. That it has low operational costs and maintenance costs is really important. Also that we're considering the site. The site is right on Main Street, the corner of Main Street and Durgan in downtown Washougal. So just the fact that it's along Main Street, that we want to strengthen the context of Main Street and really activate it and create a real beacon for the street itself and a real catalyst for more development. We also want to create a safe and positive pedestrian experience. So from when you leave your car or if you're walking from the bus, how you're getting to the library feels good and is safe. Obviously, parking needs to be considered in the design. We also want to create a connection with City Hall and the Senior Center and make sure that that connection is really strong and it's easy to go from one to the other. We also want to optimize natural daylight by how we're positioning the project on the site, and Amelie will talk a little bit more about that later. And then under sustainability, we've got lots and lots of comments on sustainability, but definitely energy efficiency, very important. And that's because it's going to give you long-term savings for the operation of the building into the future. We also want to focus on choosing materials that are really healthy and give good air quality, lots of natural daylight, efficient with water, no fossil fuel use, and we're going to be doing a LEED certification, at least silver. We think we might be able to get higher than that, but definitely have it certified to that level. And then other design considerations that surfaced were reflecting the community of Washougal, providing an active focal point in the downtown area. All the spaces should be flexible to evolve as the library service evolves. So nothing that's too fixed, really thinking how the library may operate in 20, 30 years. We want it to be able to change with the library service changes. Incorporating outdoor space with retractable cover. This was a big thing that people really wanted. It's a small site, but as you'll see when we walk through the designs, there is space to get some outdoor space on the site. So how we do that, and hopefully having some cover for shade and for rain as well in that space. Ensuring that the design works with the adjacent development and fits into the Main Street character. We also want to closely consider acoustics to allow both noisy spaces. Libraries are much more active than they used to be and can get really noisy. So you want to allow that, but at the same time have quiet spaces for people that come and want that more traditional library experience. The spaces also should feel welcoming to everyone. They should be safe for all ages, accessibility. Marissa will talk about the community room that we're going to have in the building, and there's a desire for the community room to be able to be used after hours, so you can lock down the rest of the library and still use the community room in the bathroom, so you can have events for your community during times that the library is closed. And then have it made of durable materials and also easy to use systems. So before I hand it over to Marissa, I just want to open up if there are any questions with the schedule or these thoughts, and we'll take more questions at the end as well. Or Calvin, is there anything through chat? I noticed that there's one person on Zoom. Okay, I'll turn it over to Marissa. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Laura. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the building program. And when we say building program, these are like the main spaces that have lots of subspaces within them. And so based on a lot of comments that we heard at the first community, and then also working with, shelving numbers, the size of the collection, we've drafted this program that puts the building at about just over 13,000 square feet. And just for reference, the current library space, if anyone has been to the current library, is about 2,200 square feet. So this is quite a big jump in size. And then a little bit more math. The total site area that we've been gifted is just over 17,000 square feet. And so the remaining site space that doesn't have a programmatic use within the inside of these walls it's about 4,000 square feet. So that's a couple quick facts. And then I'm going to walk through each of those 6 areas of the program that we've identified and broken out. And you'll notice in the boards and the concepts that Amelie is going to walk us through that there's these colored blocks identified, and in all of the schemes, they're roughly the same size approximately. You can tell just scale wise, the adult main reading room and space is the largest space that's been allocated. That's about 2,200 square feet alone, so larger than the current library space. And the children's space and family area would be the next largest space within that. And then we've got community rooms, meeting rooms, public lobby space. The public lobby space is just shown as a white box, but this includes a lot of different things like an art gallery space and Friends of the Library book room. Oh, So as I mentioned, the adult space, it's actually 2,400 square feet, so larger than the existing library. It's what we planned for. And we really want to imagine the adult reading room as having a lot of flexibility. As Laura mentioned, you know, we want this to be a library that can flex and change over 20, 30, 50 years time. The children's spaces, we've allocated about 2,200 square feet for the children's and family main reading space. And the children's space is such a lively place in a library. It's not just about books, it's also about play. And that's a really important part that we've heard as being a need in this community. Teen spaces. Currently in the program, we've allocated about 650 square feet for the teen space. And we imagine this likely being a separate room, as we've heard. Acoustically, the teens want their own space and everybody else wants the teens to have their own space as well. And so that's something that you'll notice in all of the concepts that Amelie walks through. Meeting and gathering spaces. So Laura touched briefly on the community meeting room. This is a pretty large size space in the program. And the current capacity that we have it at is about just over 85 seated and 186 standing room. And this would be a really flexible space, likely opened up during the day use hours of the library and used for craft space or anything that's really needed. And then also have the ability to be used after hours by locking down the lobby and providing access to the bathrooms, community room, and lobby, but none of the other library spaces. Again, just giving that flexibility. The library or the program that we are working with also accounts for 1 6 to 10 person meeting room and 2 to 4 person meeting rooms as well. And you'll see those located on each of the concepts. Outdoor space. So outdoor space, this is not something part of the building program, but we felt like it was important to mention because we have heard so many comments about needing a space to read outside and undercover and protected from the elements. And so in each of the schemes, they deal with what could be done with that remaining 4,000 square feet of space that's not part of the library building itself. And with that, what we really want to hear is, you know, we've got this program and we have these numbers, but there's still a lot of flexibility within that. And so as you walk around and look at the schemes after this presentation, what we really want to hear is what you want to be able to use those spaces for. And so any comments or ideas we welcome. Take a sticky note and put it on the boards. Oh. And with that, what was that? Any questions on that? Yes. One of the schemes does show parking, and Amelie will be able to walk through that a little bit more as well. Any other questions or anything in the chat, Calvin? No. Okay, I'll turn it over to Amelie. Can you hear me okay?
No. Yes. Okay. Hi, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the design inspiration and sort of this where we are in the very early phases of design. So we're just kind of getting inspired and learning about the site and the community so that can start to inform the real architecture and the shape of this building. We're not at the shape yet, really. We're just looking at the, you know, the locations of these large program areas that Marissa described and where they want to be on the site, where the entrance is, and how that outdoor space is shaped on the site. So starting a little bit with just our inspiration, where we start with any project, and in particular library projects, we really want the building to reflect the history, the culture, and the landscape of the place. And in Washougal specifically, all these are very rich, very important. We want to know how the library can honor the history of Washougal and provide for its future generations. We certainly want to reflect the culture of Washougal, which we know is all about recreation and being outside, fresh air, and bringing that activity and that sort of vitality to the interior space of the library. And we certainly want to find inspiration in the landscape of Washougal. We know that Washougal means rushing water. We're very inspired by the story of water and the proximity to these beautiful water bodies of water around Washougal and the area. So this is a site orientation diagram. So this orange box here is our site. It's at the corner of Durgan Street and Main Street in downtown Washougal. Main Street runs along the south end of the site, and C Street runs along the north end of the site. The number 1 here is the Washougal Community Center. Number 2 is the City of Washougal building. Number 3 is the post office. Number 5 is just sort of indicating that movement from East Washougal via Main Street. And number 6 is Steamboat Landing Park down to the south. These sort of more faint yellow circles that are shown here with the dots reflect the sun path diagrams throughout the year. So the summer solstice as well as the winter solstice. So as we're looking at where the different aspects of the program are located on the site, we're certainly thinking about that path of the sun and what types of daylight will be abundant in each of the spaces or not. The prevailing eastern winds. So we understand the strong winds that are happening along Main Street, coming up the gorge. So when we think about entry and where the outdoor spaces are on the site, we certainly want to think and be considerate of those winds and how impactful they are to the experience of being outside. The grading on the site, and I'll explain this in a little bit more detail, but there's about a 6-foot grade change, and so that means that C Street is about 6 feet higher than Main Street. So across the length of the building, we'll want to resolve that, that grade change. We are looking at a single level building, so that offers optimal flexibility for program locations, and it also eliminates the need for an elevator or inaccessible staircases within the building. This is a diagram that addresses parking. So this is a kind of a snapshot of what the parking climate is around the site. The darker blue represent private parking lots. The green is free parking lots that are off-site. And then the green along the streets there is representing on-street parking, which will certainly be used for the library. Up to the north of the site, there is a plan in place with the city right now working on an expansion of the parking lots to the north of the site. Ultimately, that will provide a little over 100 parking spaces that will be for public use and staff parking. That proximity is really great for the library. It's just across C Street, and it will be re-landscaped and very accessible and easy to get from that parking area to the library. Okay, so without getting into too much detail in each of these concepts, I'll sort of describe what we're showing here. So as I said, we're not really into detailed design yet, but we are looking at these big program areas, and so the children's reading rooms, the adult reading space, the staff areas, the community space, and where each of these different program elements wants to be located on the site. A key differentiator between these 4 concepts, which ultimately we might find a hybrid that really kind of pulls the best features from each of these into the building design. But one key differentiator here across these 4 is how that extra outdoor space is being utilized on the site. Without getting into detail on each of these on this slide, because I'll get into them in a minute, we're really looking at ways of sort of consolidating that extra square footage, either by creating a parking lot, sort of more porch, generous outdoor entries, entry courts, or central courtyards. And then the grading on the site, which I mentioned earlier, just to orient everyone again, we're zoomed in now at the plan. So Main Street on each of these is shown at the bottom of the screen, at the bottom of the plan. That's the south end of the site. And then Durgan is to the left, running north-south, and C Street is to the north. And then the elevation at C Street is about 6 feet higher than the elevation at Main Street. And so what we're proposing is that we actually would enter the building somewhere along Durgan Street so that that entry level is in between, so that the level of the building is only a couple feet or so higher than Main Street and only a couple feet or so lower than C Street. And that way it doesn't feel like it's a really tall building or a really low building at either end. So this first option takes all of that extra outdoor space, about 4,000 square feet, and it actually consolidates it to provide a very small parking lot at the north end of the site. This is as much parking as we can squeeze in with all of the required program requirements for the program of the library. So that parking lot is to the north. One trade-off with this scheme is because we're providing the outdoor, consolidating this outdoor square footage into a parking lot, there aren't many other opportunities for courtyards or entry courts, green spaces, that kind of thing. But it's a very compact and sort of efficient idea of a floor plan where you enter the library along kind of the midpoint along Durgan Street. And as you enter, you're into a pretty grand central lobby. That lobby has a direct relationship or connection to the community room that Marissa mentioned, so that after hours, that community room and the lobby can really open onto each other. Excuse me. And then the children's reading room is at the north, the adult reading room at the south, and then the staff areas and offices are to the northeast end of the site with a direct connection to the parking lot. And then restrooms, some services, mechanical, electrical, some smaller meeting rooms. Those types of rooms are really, seen as support spaces and can be kind of flanked and sort of, not the primary spaces in the center of the building. And then this is that team room that is separate yet connected. This is an aerial on the view. It's on the left view. That's a perspective view from the corner of Durgan and Main Street. This is not a design yet. This is really just kind of giving you an idea of the scale. Directly to the east, there's a current design effort for a 4 to 5 story mixed use building. That building will be retail space so hopefully publicly used space on the ground level with apartments above. So that's definitely a consideration as we're looking at the massings and the form of the building on the site, thinking about how that building may eventually shade parts of the building, which can be advantageous or in some cases not desirable. So that's a consideration as we're looking at the form. But this is a perspective view and then an aerial view of a very, very basic massing or sort of a proportional study of how the floor plan might look from a scale perspective. And this is the second option. So the second option takes that outdoor space and it actually splits it to provide a little bit of a recessed entry and sort of covered walkway along Durgan Street. And so does a couple of good things. It sort of signals entry from Main Street, right? So if the entry isn't directly off of Main Street, it might be good and it might be a nice gesture to sort of signal that entry and provide a view of that entry path from Main Street at the corner. And then to the northeast, there is a pretty generous entry court off of C Street. And so that entry court would be almost aligned with the crosswalk coming from that new City Hall parking development, or master plan, I should say. So it's great. So it's signaling entry from the south. It's also signaling entry from the northeast. And then both of those entrances sort of funnel the people into the main lobby, the children's room to the north again, and then the adult space to the south, with the community room that has the opportunity to open onto the lobby for after hours events. It also has the opportunity to open onto a courtyard space or entry court in this case. And this is a street view of that idea. These are all very similar from the street because they're not really forms yet. They're really just talking about the height and the overall proportions of the space. And then To the right, that's an aerial view. So this is the third option, third concept. So this one actually is creating an entry court off of Main Street. So a really pretty wide, generous passage to the main entry from Main, in addition to more of a central entry along Durgan Street. This does give some sort of kind of relief, some space between that future mixed-use building and the main library, which would be nice. It successfully allows the community room to open onto the lobby. It also gives the community room an opportunity to open onto that entry court. And then there is still a secondary entrance from the northeast directly from City Hall, which in this diagram is shown as more of a private staff-only entrance, but it could certainly be adjusted to kind of be a secondary entrance for the public as well. This is a view of that one from the street and then from the aerial perspective. And then the final concept takes that leftover outdoor space and it really consolidates it into a much larger courtyard. So still kind of showing an entry court coming from C Street, signaling entry in that position. It creates a large enough outdoor space to host larger events and also to be used regularly throughout the day for reading and library functions. The main program spaces in this scheme are shown a little differently, where we're showing the children's space sort of offset from the adult space. One sort of error in this diagram really is that we do think that there could be a very fluid connection between the lobby and the children's space. It's looking like it's sort of severed by a storage room, but that could certainly be much more open and there could be direct visibility between the lobby and the children's space. But by putting the children's space directly adjacent to a courtyard and a sort of entry court, it really floods that room with natural light, just as the adult space is being flooded with natural light to the south, and it provides an opportunity for direct access. So you can imagine sliding doors or a garage door that, during special events, you could really open on open that garden into the children's space and have reading circles out in that courtyard. Again, the community room has a great relationship to the lobby. It also has the opportunity to open onto the courtyard just as the children's space does. And I think that's it, yes.
So is there public access from the door?
Yes, there is, yes, thanks. So again, just as with the two prior schemes, there is, or the prior scheme only, there is very open public access from C Street. So City Hall parking to the north, this would be a very prominent entrance, very public, very open and visible. And this is a view of that idea, sort of a very rough scale massing of that, showing that courtyard, sort of providing the relief within the center of the building. And those are the schemes. And we can take questions now. We're also eager to sort of jump into a more casual conversation while looking at some of the boards, and would love to get everyone's sticky notes, hearts, hates, feedback in the form of written notes. Any questions now? Yes. 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 Thank you for saying that. And yes, for the option that does show the parking lot, at least 2 of those spaces would be accessible space, would be wheelchair equipped parking spaces. I also should have mentioned that the parking spaces along Durgan and C Street and Main will remain, might be modified, but we would, if we didn't provide a parking lot, we would convert at least 2 of the spaces on the street directly adjacent to the building to be accessible spaces. We would also provide a loading space along the street for deliveries and that kind of thing. Yes?
Did you address
Funding? Yes, I might have Amelia come up here and talk about money.
It's okay. I like that. Good evening, and thank you so much. It's just great to see a wonderful group come and ask us questions tonight. Sorry, and I'll step up so you can hear me. My name is Amelia Shelley. I'm the Executive Director for Vancouver Regional Libraries. We've had about 1.5 million of FVRL dollars set aside for this project for about 3 years. In February, I have to think about this, in March, our board just allocated an additional 1.5 million. So far the libraries contributed about 3 million towards this project. I believe our friends also have about $300,000 that they've raised through things like Dinner and White. And I think the foundation has a little additional money. We're going to be applying for grants. We think the total project cost will be somewhere between $6 and $7 million. So we're about halfway there in terms of our fundraising effort. And again, we don't know what's next. There are some capital dollars through the state legislature specifically earmarked for libraries, and we will definitely be applying for those funds.
Any other questions? Okay, Calvin, what about Zoom chat? Nope, great. Easy group. So we have sticky notes and little heart stickers kind of scattered around the boards in the back there. Please take a look at them and leave any comments that you haven't thought of during the presentation. And we'll also be circulating and can answer questions if you have them. Thank you. Oh, and Judy has something she'd like to share.
Hi, thank you all again, like Amelia said, for being here tonight. I just wanted to address the funding question, besides the grants that we are applying for, of course, and you can all keep your fingers crossed that we will get some of those state dollars. I wanted to let you know that we are having a big fundraiser on August 6th. There's some flyers up in the front, so please come and take one of those. But the event is called A Novel Night. So it will be a silent auction, live music, a kind of a farm to table style dinner. And we would love to see you all there because that will be the replacement event that we were doing in the past, Dinner and White. Some of you have heard that the Camas Washougal Community Chest will be taking that over in 2023, hopefully. But this is our substitute event and we'd love to see you. But I also wanted to mention that we are heavily relying on the public as well to help us. So we're collecting dollars. There's something called the Cornerstone, and I have tons of forms here, but it's an opportunity for you to contribute and you can pay over time. We're happy to take credit cards and bill you monthly, but at the level of $1,000, you are able to have your name or the name of a loved one or your company name on the wall in the library when it is built. Eventually, we will also have opportunities for businesses or individuals to also name certain items in the library, and we will get to that at another meeting. But just stay tuned. We encourage you all to like the Friends of the Washougal Library page and follow along and spread the word because, as you know, it takes a community. So, and this is just one more step to everybody showing their support. So again, thank you so much.